This is the first part of the presentation, where a journey in finding the path to the eye of the hurricane. So this is where we are starting off with, yeah. So where the eye of the hurricane is where the end ultimate journey where we are going towards. But the starting point is where here we started off. I started off with my journey. So I would start off my journey from my school days to early college days. So I was really very calm to say a dumb. So focus was elsewhere. It was not in studies at all. In terms of even because I don't know whether it's part of my the way in which I approach education or education how I approached me. Studies was the last thing that kept me interested. So major amount of my time I was exploring. I was not also learning. So learning was not in art. I never learned art. It's more of exploring, experimenting on art is where my base lies in. So then from there, the early flutters. So that in the being part, which is like that calmness within me was the dumbness within me, where I was not focusing on what the worldly beings wanted me to be, and I was focusing on something else. So from there, this early flutter of me being exposed to the engineering and design curriculum is completely, it's brought in a different perspective. Where in terms of engineering, again, I did my civil engineering, but than civil, most of my time I was spending elsewhere. That was the time when computers started opening up. I was spending lots of time on the computer laboratory and doing multiple things in terms of optimization algorithms. So then also, I, as a being, even though I was focusing on one, the core focus I need to do on one, but the actual doing, I was doing something else. So when everyone is walking in one direction, I felt that is not the direction which I should walk. I was not having any logical reasoning to it at that point in time. But when lots of people are going in one direction, I didn't want to go in that particular direction. So this again happened in terms of in the second year itself, I started to go out of India and study out somewhere. I was, because those were the days when we have to write to universities, get brochures. In second, third year, I was doing all this. But when I was in my fourth year, there are lots of people who were going for GRE, TOEFL, and going abroad. When there are a bunch of people who are going there, it started getting as a frustration. When everyone are going, I don't want to be part of it. Somewhere a snap decision I took, and I told to myself, let me not follow that regular path. Then I was trying to, so that following that regular path again allowed me to align back to my passion. So that following that regular path is somewhere I would want to call it as me getting carried away by the worldly things. So that aligning back to what I am is my art, civil engineering days. It was again too much of exploration on the engineering area, but I would want to again realign back to my art. So that's where I was trying to relook at, and design was the area where it started opening out. So 96, 98, I got into design at IIT Delhi, and it was a different experience at Delhi, where a new place, new location, new learnings. So from there, the wind got a bit windy when I joined Royal Enfield. So after my master's at IIT Delhi, this was the first job which I joined. So it was the initial 2 years at Royal Enfield. I was like doing multiple things, but nothing was getting recognized or nothing was happening. I need to wait too long. But that learning environment was a good playing ground for me where I experimented a lot in terms of a organization, a large organization in that as a fresher, there was a bit of freedom for me to experiment that I was able to use to my advantage. And when Siddharth, who was like as a designer, the 2 years I have designed lots of bikes, but nothing was seeing the light of the day. So then in 2000, Siddharth came over as the CEO and he told I would want a product to be out in the market very fast. So in about 9 months, the Thunderbird bike was out in the market, which I designed. And that told me as a designer, I can be an enabler. So it's like a film production producer and a director. So when there's a producer who can put in money, then the director, as you as a being, you can perform well. So I was like a king within Enfield after designing Thunderbird. I set up a design studio there. Lots of things happened. 6 years I spent there. And somewhere it was telling me that I am getting into a comfort zone. When again, this is again one other quality in me. When I am in my comfort zone, I feel I don't want to be there. I would want to come out and explore. So that had made me to come out and explore a different activity where this the beginning point was I want to explore more than bikes. So I started my own design studio. Multiple experiments, multiple failures, continuous searching for something unknown was always there. I was looking only forward. I was not reflecting during my centroid days, during my entrepreneurship days. What next is where I was continuously moving. I was doing good amount of command, did lots of activities, lots of struggles were there. Along with that struggles, internally as a being, there was lots of agitation. The being was really forcefully, it was being. And there was no peace in the being. But lots of doing was happening during my centroid days. So about 350 products across segments, multiple activities. I was a part of the TED fellow community. I was a jury session for India Design Mark, multiple talk sessions. All these were happening, but it was that agitation within me that continuously something was there telling me that I am I need to do something more. I need to do something more. That thing was continuously agitating me, and it was not allowing me to be at peace with myself. So only I put that word of peaceless during my centroid days. That is when I was also experimenting on multiple startups. One of the startup where on concrete products, I did about 60 products, and that was taken over by Dalmia Cements. And after that, I decided, let me get back to corporate. So that is where my next journey started off with. So now I'm saying that let me decide. But now the last 8-9 months, that me part of it has gone out. That jolt, which I told that I am bringing in the jolt. It is not me bringing in the jolt. The jolt is happening, and me as a being is executing the jolt. Me as a being is taking the decision of I need to change. So instead of accounting all that me, I did, I am trying to move away from that. This last 9 months, I told that I am negligible. So that's where I would want to touch upon most of my rest of the presentations. Siemens is again, I restarted my career at Siemens. So I have been all along as an industrial design person. Siemens is completely a new domain. I wishfully took this opportunity in terms of I need to start from ground up on defining experiences. And me being entrepreneur for 15 years in a corporate, I felt I was being left out, being suppressed. A bit of ugly competition was there. I was not part of the race. All these were the initial thought processes that were going on when I joined Siemens. I was not in terms with what I was working. So that again, lots of agitation it brought within me. Then that is where this is again Siemens. I joined to 2 years back in 2019. I was trying to search for a whole. Lots of questions. What is this journey? Where am I going? What is future? What next? All the questions that were going on in my mind. I was trying to explore. I was trying to write a lot, trying to reflect a lot. And that is when Anandoli was speaking with Sir, and Sir as invited Anandoli earlier itself, but Anandoli told, why don't you attend one of the sessions of Sir? And that first session itself, I felt that this is the grip which I was searching for. And I held on to the grip at that right moment. And from there, lots of questions which I had in me. I wouldn't want to say everything got answered. To a certain level, I have a bit of clarity at this point in time. So more questions, but enjoying the moment. The sessions, it had allowed me to, lots of changes were there, part of, along with, from Chennai, I moved on to Bangalore. COVID happened. There was remote working. And that jolt, which I told, I bring in a jolt within myself. The jolt, I was trying to give a jolt to myself. The environment was trying to give a jolt to me. The nature as such was trying to give a jolt to me. But all that agitation, which was there earlier, that actually now if you see me, consider myself now, that agitation has completely subsided. I am enjoying the jolt. Earlier, when the jolt comes in, that fright factor comes in, that fear factor comes in. Now I'm enjoying that agitation. That figuring out for answers is not more stressful. Earlier it was stressful. I want to do. That was what I was earlier. Now also I feel that I would want to. I want to do. I want to do more, but it is not stressful. I'm actually enjoying. Lots of clarity has come in that emptiness that I am now in. So I would want to touch upon each of that as part of the learnings, but this is my past, present, and from there, going on to my future. So this is a stage where a different level of calmness is where I am searching for now. So from the calmness where I as a person being, I was independent on my own, but as a complete ellipse circles or spiral which I have taken through, the being is searching for a different level of calmness, where I'm initiating lots of activities, I'm immersing into lots of activities, getting lots of invites, insights, and inspiring others, and going to a different level of calmness, which I don't know whether how I'm going to define it, but that in that calmness also I am trying to push my limits. I am being prepared. I am living conscious. So where there is no expectations in that calmness, there is no anxiety, no fear, or no stress. But what I am there is I'm aligning with nature, being more precise, more detached, more emptiness, more detached and more emptiness. I wouldn't want to say I have experienced it, but trying to get there. So like what Sir says, a normal being is getting into a samurai where he is getting more prepared for the future self, knowing what that unknown. I am not afraid of what it is next that is going to come. The being is continuously searching for next, but that agitation is not there. The preparedness of what I am doing now makes me more confident of what is there for me next. So this is my journey in terms of my past, present, and future. In that, I would want to touch upon, this is my second part of the presentation, where the learning journey. of the last 9 months, I would want to bucket it into three areas. One is the exposure, the second is the practice, the third is the tuning. So the exposure is the initial from November, December, that initial 2.5 months, where we were discussing on topics that was exposing us on the will, the turning point, the inner oracle. So that was the I put a visual where a diamond is there getting unrecognized, but that exposure is just unearthing the diamond. That mindset change, that belief in self, all that happened in the initial 2 months, where that exposure what Sir gave. And from there, from January onwards, we started to practice a lot in terms of the topics, the referent reality perception, the Jack and Jill exercise, the sound of the forest exercise, master cook. All these were multiple exercises where we were hands-on, we were doing, and multiple reflections on these exercises, and it made us more confident. The third part is the spokes of the self, where the diamond is getting more polished and the glitter is starting to come out. Is that fineness, the higher order preparedness that Sir is getting us prepared for, in terms of the attentions, in terms of the Sanyama, the spokes of the self, variant, invariant, all those are the finer details that we are going on now in the learning process, which are activating multiple of the closed activities which are opening out, and the being is getting more prepared for the future self. So in terms of these three activities, I would want to get more deeper in terms of the sessions. So the 29th November was the second session which I attended, where the first session I'm not really very sure, because first session was more of immersion, where I remember the topic before this, test the will. So I attended it because Anandali told, let you also attend the Sir's session. The second session was, Sir was talking about the will. The session snippets, I would want to capture it as testing the will, identify the boundaries of the will, and focus on the will. So the will is when you are really very tired, as what Sir says, but at that point you wanted to do an activity, you leave your tiredness and your will to perform that activity, such that your act of performance brings you that more inner satisfaction, or the act of performing itself is you're getting out from your comfort zone, is that will. So from that perspective, in terms of the learnings, I always keep doing multiple activities. So on my table, I always have multiple things. Now one main learning is in terms of the will to act on myself. I take one activity. Let me take that one activity and let me complete to the fullest of what I would want my being, what it calls it to be the best. I would want to strive to that level of perfection. There are again two contradictions that continuously keeps happening. So I always say that let me do this presentation in the next 1 hour or so, but the amount of fineness that it requires, it goes, I go along with the flow, and it takes 4, 5, 6 hours also. But earlier I used to be really very agitated. I want to complete within 1 hour, but it's taking 6 hours. That will of completion of that activity, now I am coming to terms, it's okay. If it has to take 6 hours, let it take 6 hours. Now this presentation, I made it last time and sent it across, and today afternoon I sat on it. I told to myself, let me spend on it for about 1 hour on this, but around 1 o'clock I sat till 6 o'clock I was working. 5 hours of my time went on making this presentation. 1 hour to 5 hours. Earlier I used to be really very agitated, but now I feel if it has to take that time, I extend myself that will to complete one activity, I do it. And the next one, in terms of will, in terms of my application, my sleeping times have reduced drastically. And it's again, one is I about 3:34 is where I get up, and about 4 to 5 hours is where normally I sleep. Most of the time it's 4, but sometimes it's also 5. But that sleeping, earlier, when I don't sleep, I feel really very suffocated. But nowadays, when I'm not sleeping, and when the body is a bit tired, in the day also, I take a bit of nap. So I come to terms when I'm trying to push myself, that will to push myself, I get into an uncomfortable zone, but that uncomfortable zone is for some positive thing, which I come to terms with myself, and I get into the being is always now in peace. So that 4 hours of sleep is not straining me, because that the 15 minutes or 30 minutes of nap once or twice in the daytime makes me more comfortable, makes me more charged up. If you see some of the sessions and search sessions also, like I completely doze out. Those were the transition times when I was not in comfort zone with myself. So I was not able to handle my body. So I would want to listen to search session, but because I was trying to push myself, my body, it was not in my comfort zone. The mind says I would want to listen, but the body was not willing to cooperate and listen. So those were the times when it becomes really frustrating. But nowadays I'm trying to overcome that and trying to get into a different level where the being is more comfortable. So the search for answers to will up to act upon self, I would want to call it as that high enthusiasm or the vigor. So these two things are some of the basics which I feel, which is allowing me to act on my will to get beyond my comfort zone. Yeah. From there, getting on to my next, I think the 6th December session, where visualizing the new reality. That particular session of SIRS, where attraction to unknown. So some of the snippets from that session where things will be different when you are dependent on the will. Leaving your body to the response of nature. Nature will take care of the being. This has been a tremendous learning in terms of exposing myself, because I have always been thinking about, I have been doing, I am bringing a jolt to myself. I have been when something is wrong, I have been doing a mistake. But that particular session of me being part of a nature, and nature is part of the evolutionary process, and me being a part of that evolutionary process, and where is that I coming into the picture? That's completely changed my perspective. And from maybe it took me some time to remove that me, I am doing from my vocabulary, and surrendering to nature. That particular moment, I came in to peace with myself. So the being was really very, very comfortable. So if something has to happen, it will happen. So things like that, and the only thing that will allow you to be more comfortable is your preparedness. So these are some of the learnings in that session, and application is exploring was going on and on as usual, but that with less of agitation. Now also lots of exploration. Earlier the exploration, whenever I am doing, I wanted to get a result. Now, when I fail earlier, I get really very agitated. Now also lots of failure happens, but I'm that agitation is not there. That visualizing the unknown, path to mystery, when walking, exploring new pathways. I'm perfectly okay with continuously exploring new pathways. The agitation is completely gone. And in terms of that mystery, um, in terms of connecting this particular topic of attraction of the unknown, I would also want to touch upon my dreams. Earlier, whenever most of my dreams used to be like I'm getting lost, and I am in some unknown land or something, and I'm deserted. But some of the nowadays dreams are like I'm flying, I'm levitating. So it's like a aircraft where I can take off, I can go around, I can fly, I can see things, and when I want to land, I can land. So this particular dream, I'm not sure how I'm able to relate to it, but it's again allowing me to liberate myself, and that exploration of I'm not a forceful exploring. When I want to fly, I can fly. When I want to land, I can land. That levitation feeling is making me much more lighter. So I'm feeling that my actual being transformation is also reflecting in the dreams. I'm not sure whether it's direct correlation, but
Of course, direct correlation, Ramesh.
okay.
Definitely, because as I again remind you all, every piece of every moment and every movement that the being makes, they are all registered or they are all coordinated by the central nervous system, especially the cerebral cortex at this level of discussions. And this I had told you in advance. When new neuronal networks are formed, there will be anything possible, anything greater will be possible. There is only greatness possible. There will be only expansion possible. There will be only extension possible from that normal dream. I wonder now why you did not mention that on the day when it occurred to you. It's a remarkable experience. We will be definitely touching upon the engine of dreaming in some of the subsequent sessions. Dreaming is definitely taken for granted. Nobody gives any importance to dreaming. It is simply pushed away as a, I don't know, as what, some waste material or something, I don't know. It is such a great loss. So that dreaming of levitation, Ramesh, let us say you do it in the consciousness. What difference it would make, you think? Okay, some people would see it and may make comments. That's all, okay? Your being has
Yes, sir.
experienced levitation. That's all. Stop. Do not attack it with the logic. Even now I repeat, I wonder how could you not mention this when it happened on the subsequent session? Brilliant. That is, I feel like, I feel like hugging you. Brilliant, Ramesh, brilliant. That shows the quality of your reflection that you did in the entire program. And it shows a lot. Anyway, that lot is already there. There's no need to talk about that. But I want to give this feedback that dreaming of levitation is actually doing levitation.
Hmm.
So it
I've
may be
also been
missing only 1%. It is manifested levitation. Like the difference
hmm.
between the male and the female is just half of the pair of chromosome. Just half. That makes the difference between the so-called male and the female body. So that half is missing. That's all. Wonderful. All right. Proceed.
So again, to touch upon this dreaming topic, so as me as a being, in terms of my learning process, I don't take any learning directly unless I experiment and experience. Then only that learning stays, or that experience stays with me. So this levitation also, I was experimenting that earlier. A few of my dreams, I was feeling okay, fine. It's just a feeling. Then I was able to control my levitation. That is when I felt that that correlation of me being in control of myself, because that centroid days, my entrepreneur days, I was fully fast forward. I was not in control of myself. I was going next. but that nowadays the speed is not there, but I feel I'm in control of my being. So yeah, so that I would want to touch upon here. Yeah, from there, the 13th December session, where the turning point, again, the turning point session is, I also spoke about it. I is negligible. I did not make the turning point. The turning point happened, and I was part of the turning point. So
Brilliant,
it was not,
brilliant, of course. Yeah.
yeah. So that is again reflection on self. When things must happen, it will. You don't. You do the task in hand, and you don't make the turning point. The turning point is happening, and you are in that road, which where the turning point is coming. So that has completely taken away my mind thing of I am doing. That has completely gone out, and sometimes I feel that I have done lots, but and Siemens, when I completely told that let me throw away my last 15, 16 years of my career and restart it completely fresh. It was a bit of jolt which I want to give it to me, but that again, uh, what I would want to say is here is that I is gone. Something has to happen in that journey. I am part of the journey, and wherever I am in the journey, let me do that particular moment properly. So that had given me a big understanding during this turning point session. Things has to happen, it will happen. In terms of the application, look back at critical turning points. It happened for a reason. So from instead of me felt that I did it, it happened for a reason, and I was part of it. And I always look for me creating a jolt in my future self. Extrapolating and preparedness to handle is only one thing which that jolt is not created by me. The jolt will come when it has to come. The turning point might come the next moment, might come tomorrow, might come next week, but I am not making the turning point. Turning point is already there. Me being a being in that path which I am traveling, my preparedness of what I'm doing in the present moment allows me to be in that turning point. How am I going to handle that turning point? Whether the turning point is going to skid me, or the turning point is allowing me to navigate that turn more elegantly. That allows my preparedness to go in that turning point much more smoother. So I can fall the hill in that turning point, I can skid in that turning point, I can be more elegant in navigating in the turning point. Anything might happen, and none of that is within the my control. The I is negligible there. My preparedness will allow me to pass through it elegantly. That is the only thing which is there in store. So I cannot make turning points happen. I disappears. Just be prepared to face it. So that's what I would want to communicate here. That is the main application which I'm doing. Self-feedback, self-awareness. So all these were part of the turning point sessions. From there, the inner oracle. So listening to the inner self, listening to the inner voice, the inner internal guidance is again one, your choice, decision, and action. Your openness to experiences. These are all some snippets from the session. Whatever happens, it's for a purpose. So these are all some snippets from the session. The learnings and applications is detachment from the past. So in this session, I am talking about the past, but normally I come to terms that I am not going to talk about my past, not about my past successes or not about my past failures. That is again one level of detachment of my past that I felt I already executed that. So, but earlier I used to sometimes when I need to talk about my failures, I really go overboard in terms of talking about my failures. So when I want to boast about myself, talk about my successes, I really go overboard in terms of talking about my successes. Both were there in my past. Now, completely, I've got detached from failures or successes. That excess baggage of my past, I'm not carrying it at all. So my reflection is always in terms of what I reflect my day. That is what it is. What my doing is doing at that particular point in time, that reflection of that particular day, than the reflection of my failures and successes, and getting stressful. I'm getting entangled from that, and that is one level of detachment which I've seen. The level, the life in the present is, that swiftness is not there. I am beating around the bush a lot at this point in time. So I will also talk about what I am beating around the bush. I am not. I know I'm going towards the somewhere in the peak of the mountain. The earlier, my earlier avatar in being an entrepreneur, when I want to go towards the peak, I was really very swift. I make multiple mistakes. I fall multiple times. But now that I'm beating around the bush, I'm doing multiple things, and the being is consistently moving. It's more comfortable, and it is at its natural pace. When my being is at its natural pace, sometimes it is really very swift. Sometimes that sluggishness comes. When that sluggishness is there, I feel that sluggishness is there for a reason, and that sluggishness is required for me to get back in that pace. So that continuous running without reflecting did not yield me a peaceful result. But now that beating around the bush, I am taking things at its own pace. When I need to go fast, I go fast. When I need to go at a smaller pace, I'm okay in that terms. So, but I'm slow but focused. But again, the third, past, present, and future, detached from the future, I'm not there still. So sometimes that fear of the future starts creeping in, but not as much as what it was earlier. Earlier, it always used to be, what if the centroid closes down, or what if I don't get a job, or what if the family, if some fight happens, what if something bad happens. Lots of that fear was there. Now that fear is reduced drastically, but still that detachment in that fear also I'm trying to come over. So that is again happened because that listening to the inner being, my inner voice, my inner guidance, I was always looking for answers outside. The environment or the surroundings will give me answers. The surrounding is on its own, but the answers are within the being. So listening to self, that inner guidance, if it's space, coming to terms with that, that is one important learning during that session of that inner oracle. From there, getting on to the next topic of randomness and structure, where eccentric and being organized, both being two extremes. It's okay to be eccentric. Other side, it comes with certain level of inner organizing. It's converse. Both are two sides of the spectrum. Will in being organized. So those were some of the topics that we discussed at that point. So in terms of learnings, I was my 16,300 days of is like I wouldn't want it to be really repetitive. Every single day, I always look to it. There is some newness in that. Something if something is repeating, I try to come out of that repetition, move out from that normal zone. When I'm trying to move out, earlier there was lots of self-doubt, and uncomfortable feeling comes in. But now that being eccentric is okay. That acceptance has started to come in, and that eccentricity is where uh, allows you to allows me to be more experimental. And that experimental, when I'm doing that experimentation, I'm not doing it agitation, I'm doing at my own ease. Of experimentation has started to come in. Eccentricity, I'm not being eccentric because of forcing myself to be eccentric. I am like that. I that eccentric thing is uh, I cannot be the Sasta and Iron keep pulling me down. That is not in that normal distribution. He cannot be in that normal zone. Either he is in this particular extreme or he is in the other extreme. The way I handle with Sasta Iron also, they feel every single day which I'm handling them. On one day I'm really uh, at ease with them. On some other day, it's again it's not the same. So all these are earlier. I feel I keep doubting what is it I'm doing. Now I am at ease with what I am doing. It's perfectly okay, because that level of experimentation allows me to try out. Okay, this is what is working. This is what is not working. Lots of times that experimentation, out of 10, 8 fails. When 8 fails, I'm perfectly okay with it now. That 2, when it becomes success, that I keep experimenting it on further. So those are all that part of eccentric and organized. Organized, I'll talk upon that much more deeper. Organized is my routine activities. Some of the activities in my morning routine, I made it really a bit more organized. That organized and eccentric, both is part of my day now. This eccentricity is basically that curiosity, that spontaneous nature. All these things is what I felt as reason for being eccentric and more organized, both being the other sides of the spectrum. In terms of the concept of genius, when the 3rd January session, where we're talking about the snippets of every individual has the capacity to be a genius. That has again brought in that lots of inner confidence. Earlier days, when school days and so on, when someone says that IIT is someone is from IIT, I used to feel okay. The IIT is something that is not a cup of tea for me. But after being to IIT, it's like and then from there getting into entrepreneurship was like a dream. Then after being into entrepreneurship, then that every single activity which I have been doubting myself, can me as a being can do, it has aligned. But again, I have multiple times, whenever I'm in that comfort zone, I have quit that comfort zone. So I am trying to figure out where this being is moving towards, because what it is exploring, whether it's exploring to be comfortable, or is it exploring to be really uncomfortable. So that is where this complete spiral which I started off with, where it's exploring to be comfortable in the uncomfortable zone, which is going towards the center of the hurricane, is where the genius and self is moving towards. The feeling now is more courageous. I'm walking a bit more confidently, sharper focus. The belief in self is much more. So the calmness of where I started off with, and the calmness where I'm moving towards, start and end are both empty. But the empty ending is because of the being more prepared. And that emptiness is, I'm not waiting for things to happen. So things will happen, and this being is just following that path. So it is getting into that zone. And if the cup needs to be filled at that point in time, it will get filled. If the cup needs to be empty, it's okay to be empty. So start and end of emptiness. So all that, the genius in self, explanation of improved being, being a prepared being, and being more self-aware, being more self-conscious, and instead of looking at something, that mystery zone, it's like solving a puzzle. Solving a puzzle with a forceful, stressful activity. Now I'm solving the puzzle with some more ease. That ease is what I would want to continuously stress upon, because that is one important learning which I got from this session, which I would want to capture as my learning outcomes, where one of the main outcome is acceptance, one with nature, that inner oracle. That is one important learning. The second is important learning is will to act upon self. Yes, second improvement which I would want to call. The third is that curiosity, reinitiation. I have been all my explorations, experimentations is out of curiosity, but sometimes in the centroid days, that curiosity, I was trying to kill that curiosity, and in the activity of I need to perform. When I told to myself I need to perform, I was performing on a stressful note. But that childlike curiosity, which I have reinitiated now, is getting into that. When the child needs to be at ease, it is at ease. When the child needs to walk, it walks. When the child needs to crawl, it crawls. When the child needs to see something, it sees. When the child needs to smell something, it smells. So it's at that ease. So there is no excess baggage. That detachment of the past has allowed me to be that reinitiate the childlike curiosity. And these are all some three important outcomes I would want to call in the last 9 months, which has happened in me. From there, the next part of my presentation in terms of the learning, I would want to walk through a typical day of that randomness and routine, which all the activities, which the learnings, which is getting into the doing part of it. It's again a combination of randomness and routine. It starts off normally at 3:34, about 4 hours of sleep. When it is tired, when the body is a bit tired, maybe it's morning 10 o'clock, I take a quick nap, or if it's 2 o'clock, I take a quick nap. So that listening to the body and the mind. Earlier, I was not listening to my body at all. When I need to stress, I keep stressing. But now, when the body is not comfortable, I take that charging part of it. I give the time for the body, because after that 15, 30, 20 minutes or 30 minutes of nap, the body is again in its fullest state. So that I call it as a nappuccino, like a cappuccino. I call that as an nappuccino. My kids make fun of me on that particular activity, but I am at ease with that little naps which I take. Then in terms of reflection, I would say I'm a bit over obsessed with reflection. So I write my daily journal manually. I create. I have my daily journal, and once I write my daily activities, what I have done, I do a 3 lines of reflection. How was that day? I also do a habit tracker. So it's like a tracker where I see patterns in my tracking. So and that sometimes I keep writing some quotes regular basis. So I keep tracking some of that, and sometimes when I don't write that thing, that pattern also reflects that, yeah. So this is time when I need to get back. So that habit tracker, that pattern checks, that weekly reviews and monthly reviews of what I have done. So that, and I also do some very random. I critically tear myself apart. So whenever it's sometimes when I'm in my comfort zone, I tear myself apart. And when I am in my bad state also, when I feel really very, this is not going right, I tear myself apart. Literally, I write a lot. I tear myself apart. I'm not sure whether I get answers out of it, but it opens up lots of possibilities where I initiate an activity to get search for answers. So, and I also have an emotional journal, ask myself lots of questions, cornering my thoughts. So I want to say a bit over obsessed in terms of reflection, but I feel I'm comfortable with it. So so then in terms of planning, I block my times. So at office, I block some amount of time. At personal work, I block amount of some amount of time. But that blocking is my morning planning schedule. But 20% I stick on to it. 80% I hardly stick on with my time blockers. When I earlier days, when I'm doing that, I get a bit stressful that I am not able to meet my timeline. So today's activity, which I was talking about, I would want to finish today's presentation in 1 hour. It took about 5 hours to do my presentation. When I'm in that flow, I let it in that flow. If it has to happen, if I need to do it, let me do it. If some of the other things needs to take a second stance, I try to manage it. So I don't make it as a stressful activity in my planning, even though I do lots of time blocking. I do a larger to-do list. I have a to-be list. I do a to-think list also. So to-think list is something really very interesting. So whenever I feel a bit of blockers, and at that point, I am not able to think through, I keep making notes of that. And I have a list of things that I do it as a to think list. And during my morning yoga sessions is where either before yoga or after yoga is where I start that one particular topic. Whatever I noted down, I reflect on that topic and start writing about it. So that writing, execution of that writing is hardly 2%, but that writing gives me lots of clarity of the being needs to do a lot of things. And 1 or 2 activities I initiate. So, and that continuous reflection allows me to again realign. All these are really very dynamic, even though I'm writing it like lots of these are really forceful activities, which I'm putting it together, but none of it I make it forceful. If some days which I want to take it really very light, I neglect all these, and that randomness also flows in. So that is where the concept of randomness and routine, that routine is there, but that randomness, if it needs to creep in, I allow that randomness to happen. I don't put a, who am, because now I is gone, who am I to stop that randomness? Randomness is supposed to happen, and let it happen. I come to terms with that. So the earlier frustration with so much to do, now I come to terms with that. And again, 9 months, this one significant thing of that curiosity thing, I would want to call lots of reading has happened, is happening nowadays. In terms of reading the physical books, lots of audio books continuously I keep listening, that small book reviews, because lots of topics, whenever I'm, the mind is now continuously searching for going towards the clarity, the fineness which is going it towards, it is asking for lots of clarity nowadays. So when that seeking for the clarity is happening, some amount of clarity is coming in experiences, but lots amount of clarity is starting to come in during the sessions. Enormous amount of clarity starts to come in, and some amount of clarity starts to come in terms of reading. So again, this reading, it is that audiobooks and so on continuously, again, as me as a being, learning doesn't get into me, it doesn't stick to me at all. I need to really experience it and I need to really practice it, or I need to really structure it for that learning to stick on to me. So whenever I read a book, it takes lots of time for me to read a book. But nowadays, that when I'm listening to audiobooks and so on, it's hardly one or two pointers stick with me. But the pointers are some initiators for me to explore further. That's how I'm looking at it. So lots of new exploration in terms of the Sanskrit language exploration, Kannakol singing as exploration. All these are some things that recently I started off, even though I'm not spending enormous amount of time, but this is always there in my list. When there is some amount of time, I start putting my time on terms of getting these. So all that is that randomness. I would want to say it's part of it in terms of, again, in terms of the home family working, much more time with the kids. Now and then that shouting creeps in, which earlier shouting, it used to be really very frequent, but nowadays with kids, when I need to be like, I need to make a point, I try to make it a point. And earlier I was trying to feel that I am in control of them. Now who am I to control? Since that I has gone out, who am I to control? That acceptance of I cannot control anyone. So if something needs to be, as kids, if they need to be exposed, I tell them that it needs to be exposed. It's up to Shastra as a being, or I am as a being, for them to accept it, understand and reflect on, take it further. And I cannot enforce certain things. So that I come to terms. Earlier, I was trying to enforce, and even I was in that uncomfortable zone. The kids were in an uncomfortable zone. Anandoli was in an uncomfortable zone, and all these crept in because I was trying to enforce what I want. Now that enforcing has gone out, that shouting has come down drastically. All these are part of that fine preparedness that has come in terms of this multiple learnings that has gone into the subconscious mind. So again, in terms of the planning, the bit of deep work, I tell to myself at least 1 or 2 hours I need to, when I sit focusedly, I do my focus activity. Hardly that focus activity happens because lots of distractions keeps coming in. But when I sit continuously for 4 to 6 hours. So those both extremes keeps happening. I don't force myself. If I need to sit, depending on the situation. Now today is a presentation. I could have done this presentation much more earlier itself, but multiple reasons it's been going on. But am I feeling satisfied with today's presentation? I felt that if I have not done this justice, I wouldn't want to present. I tell to myself. So that is a level of, I take that call whether I need to do or I shouldn't do. So some benchmarks I have, and based on that, I keep moving it on. So nothing is forceful. If it has to happen, I make it happen. Or if that randomness needs to creep in, I let that randomness to come in. In terms of office work, I used to be really very commanding. So, and I always used to be a people person. And when I give, I always ask, what is it for me? But nowadays, that giving is natural, and that what is in for me is not coming in. And when I have guided about 50, 60 interns in the last 20 years, but in the last 1.5, 2 years of my intern guiding, those interns, my 15, 22 years of my professional career, about 50, 60 interns, my last 1.5 years of my intern guiding, about 8 to 10 of that interns are really, they are like my extended arms. It's happened because that unconditional giving of, it's not spoon feeding I would want to call, but that asking the right questions at the right moment. All those things have brought in that my interns, I feel them, they are my extended arms nowadays. So lots of my activities, I very collaboratively work with them. So even though they have completed the internship, that relationship is there. That 40, 50 of them, all 40, they are there somewhere. But my last 10 interns, the relationship is completely different. So all those were some of my office works, lots of things that's brought me a bit of change. The next part of my presentation is to do with this Kalpaviksha. So this is one visual map which I put together. Yeah. So here I try to put together all whatever I explained about the SKEET framework. So the roots of what I am, or my learning framework, is my practice, my skills, my seeking knowledge. So then from there, my knowing and my being is my trunk. My doing is the multiple branches. My exploration are the multiple branches. My experimentation are the multiple branches. My showing is the fruits the being is showing. So here I wouldn't want to call me. Solely I'm continuously saying being. The being is showing. Then the being is experiencing. The being is also expression. It's expressing itself. All that is part of it. And it's also giving. So continuously it's giving. So I felt the being itself as this Kalpaviksha tree, which is a wishing tree. And I wish certain things. So that is a desire, or that sense of having or something. So it's not the primary thing, it's an outcome. So I would have put that having I have not having is something later I captured as part of this particular one. Having I put as an outcome. It is not driving, but having comes as part of this multiples of these happening as outcomes. So I try to capture both the SKEET framework, the skill, knowledge, experiences, experimentations, exploration, the thinking, and experiences and expression on one side, and knowing, being, doing, giving, growing, all that on one side. Both I try to capture as part of this particular Kalpaviksha tree. And from there, what my future self is working on. I have been doing multiple things, and I try to start to focus. This is where I would want to end my presentation with focus and refocus. I started to focus on this education, and efficacy. So where the being, part of Sir session, the being is getting refined. How do I take it up to a larger people? Whatever I have learned, I wanted to take it to much more larger people. And ethos, in terms of this particular one, I've been exploring on temple architecture a lot. And that again, temple architecture is again a huge field, that Indianness feel factor, that Indian ethos. I've been exploring on that particular aspect. And as my professional career, as the user experience, all these four is where I have, instead of diverting a lot, I focus on these four areas where I would spend my future self. So in terms of the education part of it, I keep I have set up a design thinking laboratory in 2 of the schools, and continuously keep guiding these schools in terms of design thinking and lecturing in terms of the both from a teacher's perspective and students' perspectives. From a teacher's perspective, I was talking to them about that moment of experience, to that memory of experience in terms of what they need to deliver. So this is again a different topic. I would not go deep into that. Good teaching experience, how can that go? And in terms of a student toolkit, I came up with some 10 principles of that good learning. So these are some part of output which I can continuously keep exploring. And this is not fixed. I keep on refining these. So continuously keep reworking on this. And the second one is the temple architecture. These are all part of not the Siemens activity, but these are all that my extended activities, where Yali as a entity, it's fascinated me a lot. So when I was at Centroid, we completely digitized on complete Yali. We made a 3D model of it. We made molds out of it. And when I was doing it, is where that attachment towards this particular entity started to come in. That mythical creature, that which it's got that it's got a lion, elephant, horse, snake, multiples of these put together. It also somewhere it started triggering me when something like a Chinese dragon, when something like a phoenix bird, when it can become world famous, why not our Indian identity of this Yali can become world famous? That's one small activity which I started in terms of researching on this, knowing about this particular thing, and in terms of recreating, I have created a scale model in concrete with respect to this extended extended, like Trisha was one of the in one of her sessions, she has been part of it. So with her, I have been continuously working on creating this Yali as a paper model. And anything that needs to be sustaining, there has to be a business model, a financial model associated with it for it to be sustaining from a larger perspective. So this Yali, even though it's so passionate, I would want to make this Yali as a world famous thing, recreate, reincarnate this thing. I am also looking at this for it to be sustainable. What is that I need to do it to make it sustainable? I'm linking up multiple business models on top of this and working on some of these activities. And in terms of the other extended activity is as part of my, because I started off my user experience last 1.5 2 years. When I restarted my thing, then the regular conventional, I started to look things from different perspectives. So those perspectives, when I'm talking to people, it is not the conventional perspectives. I felt that I should start documenting some of these perspectives. So I here again, me as independent person, when I was trying to work on it, because the being always starts to look at things to be more perfect, it takes enormous amount of my time to do lots of these activities. So in each of these activities, maybe the Yali activity or the UX saga, I am now working with lots of extended people. So who, again, with my thought process and that thought process aligning together, some of these are going on much more very swift. Here we are coming up with a series of posts on, we are calling it as UX sagas. It's both to do with micro sagas, 2-liner information, or mini sagas about 50-word information, or it can be a saga like a parable. So some of my learning, some of my findings I'm trying to document on. This is again domain specific. I'm trying to bring it out. So this is one activity. So these are all some different activities which is the being is at present doing, and the being is not doing on its own. It's extending itself. Lots of giving is happening. So when that giving is happening, that synergy where it's multiplying. I would want to get this synergy in place because at Centroid, which is my entrepreneur career, I felt that I am driving it always. But now I am not driving it. I am part of an ecosystem where, be it Yali or be it this particular UX saga and the education, I am part of an ecosystem. I am part of a community. And I keep energizing that, and alternatively, the community also keeps energizing me. So, and it's going really more speedier, even though I'm calling it's going slow, but than what I actually felt. It's going really much more faster, and with ease it is going. That's the beauty which I'm able to relish as part of the session till date. The being is really at ease. It is not stressful at all. So again, the present state I would want to capture. Then my last slide for the day, my concluding slide for the day, where continuously the being is focusing, refocusing, lots of problems comes day in and day out, lots of issues, it will continue. It's in terms with that. So it's not fixed, even though I have fixed all these 4 activities of ethos, education, experiences, and so these things even I have fixed. I am now only concentrating on 2, the education part of it and the efficacy part of it. I am taking it a bit more slower. It's perfectly okay. But the other 2, the ethos and the experience part of it is going on really very speed. These are all work X activities. So and calm, that listening to inner oracle is the present stage. Aligning with nature, I is gone, I am part of nature. There is an inner oracle which is continuously guiding, and that guiding continuous, it passes on. It is the preparedness of me in my daily activities allow me to navigate the turning point much more elegantly. That is the belief. So the visualization. So this one is, sir asked in one of the sessions, are you talking or are you narrating an incident? So that visualization of the being outside, and sir told you visualize like how you visualize Anandavali and you, Sasta and all others, you visualize yourself from outside. Nowadays I'm enjoying that. So whenever I push my being out, it passes on a bit of goosebumps. It's like that childlike enjoyment. It comes in that when I'm visualizing myself, I laugh at myself sometimes. I wonder what this being is doing. I wonder that reflection of whatever I've been doing on paper and so on. That's a different level of reflection which my inner being is doing. But that visualization of me separating myself from my bodily being and moving it out, it's a different feeling. I don't know how I'm able to explain, but that goosebumps, that enjoy, I feel that different level of joy. But that's recently started. It's like it's like a pastime nowadays for me. I move my being out, see myself. That's a nice feeling. So that's again part of this particular learning, present stage. Sleeping, whenever I sleep, lots of thoughts keeps coming and it keeps bombarding. It's when I get up, I was really very stressful. But nowadays, when I go to sleep, it's complete blank. I even during my nap, 15 minutes nap, it's complete blank. I tell myself that that blankness, and when I get up, it's that charge is really there. That comes in because of when I sleep, I don't carry that excess baggage, that detachment. All that is the part of the present stage. No expectations from anyone. Accommodate and be flexible. This is one of the sessions that we have been very, very detailed. We deliberated on that accommodate and being flexible. I was always flexible, but I was also trying to establish myself. But that me has gone out. So no expectations. Whatever doing, do it to your utmost perfection. No standards, external standards. It's the standards which I set for myself. Time flies. Earlier I used to get stressful. Now I go with the flow. It's reduced drastically, but now sometimes it gets frustrated also, but trying to get that also nullified. Finally, I want to end up my presentation with, sir, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for all this 9 months of this intense activity, and I'm happy with myself, sir. With that, I would want to conclude my presentation.